Well, good morning, all of you. I am Ayan Mandal from the Department of English, Bankura Christian College. In this class, I will be addressing my fourth semester UG honors students, and the poem that I would be teaching today is Walt Whitman's "O Captain, My Captain." So I would like all of you to pay attention to the title of the poem. You would find in the title two exclamations, right? One exclamation after "O Captain" and another one after "My Captain." And at the very outset, let me clearly mention that this is a poem which is occasioned on the death of the American president, Abraham Lincoln. In fact, the captain in the poem is Lincoln himself. All right? And let me also add that Walt Whitman never met Abraham Lincoln. But he always felt a very strong connection with him throughout his life. In fact, to understand this poem, you need to understand the background of a very famous American phenomenon, 19th century phenomenon, which is the American Civil War, as I have written there on board. In fact, Lincoln lived through the years of the American Civil War. You all must be knowing that the time span of American Civil War is 1861 to 1865. I'm repeating that Whitman never met Abraham Lincoln, but he lived through the years of the American Civil War, number one. Number two, he moved to Washington, D.C. during this war. He worked for the government. He volunteered at different hospitals. And he was very euphoric about the possible outcome of the American Civil War. I will be discussing what the American Civil War is all about. But before that, let me devote one or two more sentences on this poem per se, "O Captain, My Captain." This poem was first published, if I look into the publication details of the poem, this poem was first published in the Saturday Press. What's the title? The Saturday Press. That was where this poem was first published. And the date of publication was November 4, 1865. You can't see the board, it's the Saturday Press, P-R-E-S-S, P-R-E-S-S, right? And please underline the Saturday Press. The date of publication is November 4, 1865. After that, the poem appeared in one of the collections of poems by Whitman. And please write the name of that collection. The name is Sequel to Drum Taps. Sequel, S-E-Q-U-E-L, to Drum, D-R-U-M hyphen T-A-P-S, and underline the name of this collection. It was in the same year that the poem appeared in this collection of poems by Walt Whitman. That means 1865. But we all are aware of the most important collected work of Whitman, for which Whitman was very famous. What is it? Correct, you are. Leaves of Grass. And in 1867, the poem got incorporated in Leaves of Grass. So in which edition of Leaves of Grass the poem got incorporated? It was in the 1867 edition of Leaves of Grass. All right. Now, if we follow the background of the poem, as I was talking about the most important historical phenomena that the poem deals with, what is it? It is the American Civil War. So if you look at the background of the poem, first you have to note what is the span of the American Civil War. You already know it is 1861 to 1865. Next, you have to understand that American Civil War was a war between two groups. The first group is UNION, Union, and the second group is the Confederacy. So what are the two groups? One is Union, UNION. The second is Confederacy, CONFEDERACY. Now, loosely speaking, by union, we refer to the northern states of USA. What do we refer to? The northern states of USA. And by confederacy, we usually refer to the southern states of USA. Remember, I'm not talking about North America and South America. I'm talking about the northern states of United States of America and the southern states of United States of America. Now, what was the issue? We understand that it was a kind of a civil war between people of the same nation. But what was the central issue? Dear students, when Lincoln became the President of America, to put it very simply, he was immensely irked by a horrible practice that ran in America. What is it? It is the practice of slavery. He was deeply touched by the ways in which the blacks were discriminated against. By blacks, I am loosely referring to the Afro-American population. And he made it a point that assuming power in America, his first and foremost responsibility would be to abolish this practice of slavery. And he took active measures to do the same. First, he tried to convince the nation to do away with slavery without thinking about war. But the war was inevitable. He could not, in fact, avoid war. Why? The reason is very important. You have to understand the reason. Once again, I want to draw your attention to this fact. It was a war between the Union and the Confederacy. So when I'm talking about the Union, that means the North, we have to understand what was the governing economy in the north of United States of America. The northern states were governed by industrial economy. What kind of economy? Industrial economy. And the southern states of USA were governed by agrarian economy. Agrarian economy. Now you can understand that if slavery gets abolished Who would fall in a very difficult situation? Which states? The northern or the southern? What's your common sense? Southern. Why? Why? Because the governing economy there is agrarian. They require the cheap labor of the slaves. Am I clear? That is why if slavery gets abolished, what will happen? Inevitably, this huge supply of labor provided by the Afro-Americans, by the black population in USA, that would stop, that would get interrupted. So, though the northern states were very clearly in favor of abolishing slavery, the southern states could not agree to it. And because of this confrontation between the north and the south, the war became unavoidable. The war became inevitable. Let me tell you that Union means the original United States of America. Originally, there were 34 states. How many states? I'm talking about originally 34 states. And from these 34 states, bit by bit, 11 states got separated. And they formed another group called Confederacy. So originally there was only one group called Union. But later from the Union, first 7 states and then another 4 states got seceded. S-E-C-E-D-E-D. Seceded means separated. And these 11 states therefore formed a separate group. What is the name of the group? Confederacy. Is this thing clear to all of you? Remember, to understand this poem, this background of American Civil War is very, very important. Clear? Now, obviously, who gave leadership to the Union? It was the then American President, Abraham Lincoln, and his group was unequivocally anti-slavery. Slavery as a practice must end. And the southern states, if I'm to use the technical term, these states were pro-slavery, P-R-O. Pro means they were in favor of slavery. Clear? Am I clear? Now, Lincoln obviously gave leadership to the Union, and we are aware of the outcome of American Civil War. The war officially ended. You can take down this information. The war officially ended when Confederate General, C-O-N-F-E-D-E-R-A-T-E, when Confederate General Robert E. Lee, Robert E capital, Robert E, the middle word is E, Lee, L-E-E, surrendered to the Union General, and the name of this Union General is also very, very important. The name is Ulysses S. Grant. Ulysses S. Grant. That's the name of the Union General. So, who lost? Obviously, the Confederates. The Confederacy as a group got defeated. And that group, headed by Robert E. Lee, got surrendered to the Union General Ulysses S. Grant at the Battle of Appomattox Courthouse. At the Battle of Appomattox Courthouse. All right? Now, more than this, I'm now coming to the main area of discussion. What is it? It is the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. How did Abraham Lincoln, how was he assassinated? Lincoln was murdered by John Wilkes Booth. John Wilkes, Wilkies, Booth, Booth. And Booth was a well-known spy of the Confederacy. He was an actor by profession, and he was a spy, S-P-Y, of the Confederacy. What happened? I'm talking about a particular day, April 11, 1865. Lincoln was addressing the audience, a huge gathering, and he gave a very famous declaration. What did he declare in that gathering? Voting rights to the blacks. He declared voting rights to the blacks. And in that gathering, John Wilkes Booth was a participant. He attended that gathering. You have already noted down that he was working as a spy of the Confederacy. At that moment only, John Wilkes Booth hatched a plot to assassinate Abraham Lincoln. After 3 days, I'm talking about April 14, 1865, Lincoln was supposed to be at a very famous theater house called Ford's Theater, Fords. Lincoln was at the Ford's Theater to watch a play. At around 10:14 p.m., 10:14, Lincoln was shot, murdered, shot dead, you can say, almost dead. In fact, Lincoln remained in coma for 8 hours. And he died the very next day. In fact, Lincoln's murderer, John Wilkes Booth, he was also shot dead after 11 days. All right? So that is just an additional information. We have got nothing to do with that last bit of information. But we are interested in these two things. Number one, the role that Abraham Lincoln played in ensuring the victory of the Unions, that group. In fact, it was the triumph of the nation as a whole, because slavery was an abominable practice. The way the blacks were treated, I guess all of you are reading Toni Morrison's Beloved, and you have seen there that how brutally the Afro-Americans were treated. In fact, they are still treated in a horrible way, in an extremely discriminatory way in America. Slavery has officially ended, but racism still continues, isn't it? Has racism ended? No. Racism, colorism, these things did not end. So to come back to my point, in order to study this poem, we should primarily be interested in two things. Number one, the victory that Lincoln ensured to the nation as a whole. I am not looking at it from a narrow perspective, telling it that it is a victory of just one group, because victory of the Unionites, in fact, was the victory of the nation as a whole. And second is, after ensuring this thing for the nation, Lincoln met a pathetic death. In fact, again I draw your attention to the title of the poem. What is the title of the poem? Oh Captain, my Captain. Let me tell you that in this poem there is an extended metaphor. In this poem there are two levels of meaning. There are two levels of meaning in this poem. One literal, another encoded, metaphorical. Literal meaning and the encoded meaning, the metaphorical meaning. All right? So these are the two levels of meaning in this. There are two levels of meaning in this poem. And when you look at the title Captain, you must remember that Whitman is talking about the captain of a ship. The captain of a ship. Which ship? The ship that has endured, that has withstood, that has conquered also the tempestuous sea, the adverse weather conditions, the inclement, inclement, weather conditions. And who steered the ship skillfully, efficiently? It is obviously the captain of the ship. So, on a literal level, we can say that the poet is here glorifying the captain, the efficiency of the captain, the elan of the captain, the skill of the captain. But what is the extended metaphor? What is the metaphorical nuance here? The ship is a metaphor for the nation. Isn't it? The ship is a metaphor for the nation. Which nation? United States of America as a whole. And who stands for the captain of the ship here? Abraham Lincoln. Remember, dear students, that this poem constitutes both elements of eulogy and elegy. Eulogy and elegy. Why elegy? Because the poem is addressing, or the poet is rather lamenting, the death of the captain, Abraham Lincoln. But parallelly, the poet is glorifying the way in which Lincoln has come out victorious. Lincoln's leadership has ensured the victory of the nation as a whole. So remember, I'm repeating this point once again, that in this poem there are how many levels of meaning? Two levels of meaning. One literal, another encoded or metaphorical. Clear? Now, the second thing about this poem, I talked about the exclamations in the title that carries the strong euphoria of the poet, isn't it? But I'm also interested in this personal touch of the poet. See, he's not only the captain of the nation, but he's also the poet's personal captain. My captain, isn't it? So this word my is suggestive of a strong sense of attachment, a strong sense of belongingness that the poet has with the captain, with Lincoln. All right? Now, if you look at the poem, if I start reading the poem, see, O captain, my captain, our fearful trip is done. Is done obviously means is over. But what does the poem begin with? It begins with a very strong euphoria of the poet, a triumphant shout of the poet. And the poet is imagining that many of the citizens are on a ship, citizens of the nation are on a ship. In fact, the ship is the metaphor of the nation, and the ship gets efficiently steered by the captain. But see, the poet is qualifying the nature of the journey in the very beginning of the poem, in the very opening sentence of the poem. What kind of trip is it? Is it a very smooth, relaxed, leisurely, joyful trip? Yes or no? So what kind of a trip is it? It is a fearful trip. That means the journey had not been an easy one, a smooth one. Our fearful trip is done, is over finally. For the time being, let us consider only the literal meaning. The ship underwent many, let us say, vicissitudes, the turbulence, the tempestuous weather. The ship underwent all those things. But finally, thanks to the power of the captain, thanks to the elan of the captain, the ship has come out victorious. Our fearful trip is done. Is done means is over. However much the trip was beset with difficulties, with adversities, the pleasant outcome has to be relished. Look at the next line. The ship has weathered. What a wonderful way in which the word weather is used. The ship has weathered every rack. Weathered here means the ship has withstood. The ship has endured. The ship has successfully resisted. This sense is also there in this word weathered. The ship has successfully resisted every rack, meaning every adversity, every encumbrance, every disturbance. Let us say the tumultuous weather, the horrors of the tempestuous sea, the tempest-tossed sea. I'm borrowing this word tempest-tossed from Shakespeare's Macbeth. You remember there, in that long song of the witches, they were talking about the tempest-tossed sea. So the ship has finally come out victorious. The fearful trip is over. It is done. The port is near. There is a sense of jubilance in this line. The port is near. The bells I hear. The people are exulting. While follow eyes the steady keel, the vessel grim and daring. The port is near. That means there is no risk. There is no further risk. The ship has finally reached its destination. The destination is very near. And on the other side of the shore, people are waiting to congratulate the captain of the ship. The people are exulting. Look at the word exulting. exulting. That means the people are in a festive mood. They are celebrating. They are jubilant. Jubilant. They are cheering the captain. They are waiting to pay the due tribute to the captain, the homage to the captain. Remember here, one meaning of the word bells, obviously, what's that meaning? The bells have a celebratory suggestion. The people are celebrating the power of the captain, the skill of the captain, the expertise of the captain. But this is a question that I want to put to you. Can you discover or can you locate another meaning of this word bells? Any other meaning, please? Yes? Correct you are. Death bells. You remember the first line of elegy? The curfew tolls the knell of parting day. So remember that possibly in this word bells, there is a dual suggestion. On the one hand, they are the bells smacking off celebration, festivity, jubilance, congratulatory bells they are. On the other hand, they are the death bells because the captain is already dead. The captain has steered the ship, but the captain has breathed his last. The captain has ensured success, but the captain has failed to live through the years following success. You know that Lincoln died the same year, 1865. So, on the one hand, the bells are celebratory. On the other hand, the bells very worthily suggest the bells of death, lamentation. They are the mourning bells. The people are mourning the loss of the captain, the death of the captain. The people all exulting. Obviously, if you take the meaning of the word exulting to be jubilant, then the second meaning of the word bells does not hold true here. If we read this line or this part of this sentence along with the word exulting, then the first meaning holds true. The second meaning does not hold true. But as students of literature, we have to be aware of the other suggestion of the word bells. So for example, a question comes in your exam that what is the significance of the word bells? The examiner would expect that you would be writing both the significances, the celebratory part and also the mournful part, the bell suggestive of the death bells. Clear? While follow eyes, actually this is the poetic use of language. The true use would be while eyes follow the steady keel. While follow eyes here, what would be the true poetic use? While eyes follow the steady keel. Keel here refers to the steel structure or the timber structure, the steel structure or the timber structure of the base of a ship, of the base of a ship. But it is a synecdochic use of language here. Though keel refers to a part of the ship, but in the context of the poem it refers to the entire ship. So it's part for the whole. What is the figure of speech here? Part for the whole, synecdochic use of language. So see here, while follow eyes, the steady keel, steady keel. So we can say that the keel here means the ship. Synecdochically, the keel refers to the entire ship. Now the ship is steady now. But was the ship steady in the mid of the sea? No. The ship, rather, if I am to use it in this way, the ship was steadied, D-I-E-D, by whom? By the captain of the ship. Clear? While eyes follow the steady keel. Now see, from this tone of jubilance, the elegiac tone surfaces now, bit by bit. How do we know? The vessel grim and daring. Underline this expression. The vessel grim and daring. Obviously, vessel here refers to the ship. And daring, obviously, it qualifies the vessel. The vessel is not daring, the captain was daring, isn't it? The captain was daring. So, in a way, it's an instance of transferred epithet. But what is grim in the vessel? The vessel has come out victorious, but wherein lies the sorrowful note? Tell me, please. Wherein lies the note of sorrow? The captain has breathed his last. So the vessel, though daring, appears to be morose, sorrowful, grim. But oh heart, 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 oh the bleeding drops of red, where on the deck my captain lies, fallen cold and dead. See here, and with this I will end my class, where on the deck my captain lies. Once again, see this strong sense of belongingness that the poet has with the captain. The captain lies on the deck, cold, lifeless. Now he lacks the warmth of life, the vitality of life. This captain was so enthusiastic, so energetic in steering the ship forward. But now the captain lies fallen and dead. So this is all about the very first stanza of the poem, and I hope I could make myself clear. I would continue with this poem in my next class. Thank you all.